Pallas Retrograde, August 14th to December 1st, 2026. I think I was wrong about Athena. My name is Megan. I am a feminist Hellenistic astrology student. If you're here for feminism and Hellenistic astrology and goddess mythology, you are in the right place. In the Athenian theater, 458 BC, a jury of citizens is deadlocked over a young man who has killed his mother. Orestes cut Clytemnestra's throat because she had killed his father. The Furies, older than the gods on the stage, have hunted him for it because the blood of a mother is the one debt that they always collect on. The votes are counted and they are even. Athena holds the last one, and she casts it for Orestes. Her reason, given out loud in front of the city, she is for her father in all things. She was never born of a mother, and the man who killed his wife destroyed a person that he was not related to by blood, while this boy killed a woman who was the only vessel that carried him. The Furies scream. Athena offers them a room under the city, honors, incense, and a new title, and they take it. This is what the Furies agree to be called once they have accepted the agreements, which is the kindly ones. Now, Athens walks out of that theater with a court, a legal precedent that killing your mother is the lesser crime, and a goddess who delivered both. This is where the Thema Mundi reading of Athena comes from, where Athena is a traitor and a betrayal to women. And I have read her that way. I have read her like the Thema Mundi of the gods. A woman with a real standing inside of the system, the only woman in the room with a vote that really matters, and she uses it to make the system's verdict look like justice. She does not just agree with the men, she provides the reasoning that lets the men stop arguing. She converts the rage of the older women into a civic institution with a nice name and a basement, and every woman watching knows that figure from her own life. She is the Thema Mundi of everyday life. She is the Caroline of corporations, the one who gets promoted and immediately becomes the person who explains why the policy is fair, the one who sits on the panel so that the panel is not all men, but then votes exactly as the panel would have voted without her. As I said, my name is Megan. I am a feminist Hellenistic astrology student. What does student mean, you say? Well, let me tell you. I have always been interested in astrology. I'm 52. And just recently, in December, I started a formal astrology training. And since then, I've been writing and reading and learning. And how I learn best, especially in this ADHD, odd ADHD brain, is I write and then I integrate, and the best way for me to integrate is to teach. So that is what I am doing here, and I love that you are here because it means that I'm learning something, and also that I am learning and growing inside of astrology, but then also really as a person. The last 8 months have been an incredible growth period. I would love to read for you. If you have not come for a reading, please come for a reading. If you have come for a reading, please come for a reading. I love doing readings. I love meeting you. I love working with you. I love learning how the chart manifests itself in your life and how we can then create something from here. You might want a reading if you have a birthday coming up, and that's called a solar return reading. You might want a reading if you want me to look at a certain situation, or you feel like the transits are kind of beating you up, or you feel like the transits are really lucky, or you want to find out what transits are lucky and what transits are going to beat you up. We'll have a whole conversation about causation there. Maybe you want me to look at a certain situation. Maybe you want me to look at a relationship and what works and what doesn't work. Maybe you need my pattern recognition skills, my intuition skills. I would love to share all of those with you because it helps me grow and it makes a difference for you as well. So general readings. All the links are down below. You may also want a pre-recorded reading. That is just if you are in a time zone that doesn't work for us to meet on the phone, or you just want to savor me geeking out for an hour or an hour and 15 minutes on your chart. I would love to do that. That's it's me, like, seriously, my odd ADHD, geeking out on you and what your strengths and your weaknesses and what you need to look out for, and it's really fun for me to do as well. I also have a neat reading that I enjoy doing, and that's the Lilith deep dive. So if you know Lilith, if you are learning about Lilith, also the lots, which are the Arabic lots of astrology, and how they really are keys for us and how they unlock certain things, our creativity, our passion, our intention, and how then those are connected to wealth. I think that's really fun to do. So you can find everything down below. You can also find memberships on Buy Me a Coffee. You can just send me money on Buy Me a Coffee if you want to support me or my Sprite Zero habit, or just the channel. And I appreciate all of it. And I say this over and over because as I see when I look at the analytics, 60% of you every single episode are new. So for those of you who have heard 200 of these, I so appreciate you staying for that. I so appreciate. Okay, let's go to Pallas, my new friend Pallas. Arachne. The other piece of evidence is a girl from Lydia who was better at weaving than the goddess. Ovid tells it in Metamorphoses. Athena comes to Arachne and disguised as an old woman and advises her to be humble. Arachne refuses, so they weave against each other. Athena's cloth shows the gods enthroned, which is a contest for Athens, and 4 small scenes in the corners of mortals who challenged gods and were destroyed for it. Arachne's cloth shows 21 assaults. Europa and the bull, Leda and the swan, Danae and the shower of gold, Persephone, Medusa, and Poseidon. She wove the rapes of the gods accurately, with every god recognizable, and Ovid says the work was flawless. Not one thread could be faulted. Athena sees it, and she tears it apart, and she beats her about the head with the shuttle. Arachne hangs herself, and the goddess brings her back as a spider, hanging from a thread, spinning forever with nothing to say. So, Arachne speaks the truth, of which no one else would speak, and is destroyed because it was true, by the goddess of exactly the skill that made it. Audre Lorde stood up at a conference in New York University in 1979 in a room of feminist scholars where she and one other woman were the only black women there. And she said, "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." And she was not talking about men. She was talking to the women in that room about what happens when women take the frameworks that were built to keep them out and use those frameworks expertly about the women who got left outside while the expertise is being demonstrated. Athena is that argument, standing in a courtroom holding the ballot. She has the finest legal mind on the stage, and so the reading that I was saying that she is the Pam Bondi of the gods, it holds, right? It's betrayal, it's self-serving, it's denial, and it's worth really sitting with how we've seen those women and where we have been those women before going any further, because I'm about to read something different. So just take a moment in journaling or in thought or something about these women and about how we're around these women. I think that it's as I go through the process of decentering the system and decentering men, how much I have not been that way. And when I have was when I also stood in that role. And then the women around us who are doing the same thing. Okay, so we can take a moment there And now let's go. So the Ortesia is a document, right? Athena's line about having no mother was written by a man for a city in a very specific political season, and it has been read that way for 2,500 years as her character. Now, let's go to Metis, her mother inside of her. Hesiod gives the part that the play leaves out. So before Hera, Zeus was married to Metis. Metis is the older Titan word for cunning intelligence. The practical kind, the shape-shifting kind, the skill that gets a person out of a room. When she was pregnant, when Metis was pregnant, Zeus was warned that Metis' second child would take his throne. And so he ate Metis. He took her into his body while she was carrying Athena, and then Athena arrives out of his head fully armed. She is adult, she is fully armed, she is not motherless. Her mother is inside the man who consumed her, alive, still functioning, still supplying the intelligence, and no longer able to say her own name. So everything Athena knows is Metis. The strategy, the craft, the reading of a room, being able to see a battlefield and predict what needs to happen, the moment to speak, all of it came from a woman that no one in the story can see because she's inside Zeus the father. And then, in open court, a man writes that the daughter said, "No mother bore me." And the woman who actually taught her how to argue isn't there, right? Just like the women who pull us aside when we're first starting out and tell us who to watch out for, who to not get into an elevator with, who to listen to, who to not listen to. We don't remember those women. The grandmothers who pull us aside and say, watch about this and keep this in mind. We forget those conversations. The mothers that pull us aside and say and tell us little things about life and what we need to remember, we either roll our eyes or we don't remember the conversations at all. The retrograde, this Pallas Athena retrograde, is where a woman goes looking for the source of her knowing. Where did that come from? Where did the knowledge come from? And she goes to look for where. So, what Athena did for Medusa. The record, the story, says that Medusa was raped by Poseidon in Athena's temple, and Athena punished her by turning her hair into serpents and her face into something that no one could look at. Jealousy, story says. I've done that. Envy, right? Because why would a woman punish her and then use the Gorgon's head as a shield? The goddess could not stand a mortal woman that beautiful, something like that, right? So let's look at what the punishment actually does. Is it gives her a gaze that no aggressor can survive. It gives her a head that no hand can go near again. It makes her, from that very day, a woman that no man can violate again. So if a goddess wanted to protect a woman from a god, Poseidon, and could not touch the god for a number of reasons, he's her uncle, they already have beef about Athens, there's issues, and he is her equal and he represents the sea itself, then anything that he could do to her, anything that she could do to him would then bounce off. And so she needs to find some way to protect. So this isn't about justice. It's not restitution. It's not victim blaming. It's armor. And men filed it by writing it down as a curse. Because a woman that nothing can reach becomes a monster, and that their story cannot stand monsters. So this is also why she had to be hunted, right? Medusa. So Perseus is sent for her head. Athena hands him the mirrored shield and tells him how to use it. And then this is the hardest part of her, is the head comes back and Athena puts it on her own chest. The Gorgonian is on the shield in every image of her that survives. It's put on buildings after this, right? She wears the face of a raped woman into every battle for the next 3,000 years, and she never takes it off. And anyone who comes at her has to look at the face of a violated woman again and again and again, just as a reminder of who Medusa is and what happened to her. Now, many years before this, Poseidon struck the rock of the Acropolis and produced salt water. Athena planted an olive. And the city, since this was a contest about who was going to name the city, chose the tree, because an olive gives in many different ways. It gives oil for lamps, it gives food, it gives trade, and it gives wood. It goes on giving after everyone who planted it is dead, which is a much slower instrument than a spring of seawater. And the olive won. So she is the ergon of the workshop. What she hands to women is the loom, the spindle, the wheel, and the kiln. And Philomela, whose brother-in-law raped her and cut out her tongue so that she could not tell the story, sat down at that loom and wove the crime into the cloth, and sent the cloth to her sister, and her sister read it. Philomela had no voice, and she could weave, and the weaving said it for her. So that same technology that Athena destroyed in Arachne's hands is the technology that got Philomela heard. And both of these are true about the same goddess. She is the one who tore the cloak apart, the cloth apart from Arachne, and she is the one who put the loom in the hands of a woman who could not speak. And then the Palladium. Pallas was a girl. In Athena's companion, they used to spar. One day, Athena struck too hard and killed her. She took the dead girl's name for her own and carved her image, and that image was kept in the citadel, and Troy stood as long as it stood there. So the strategist of the ancient world, Pallas, is called after the friend that she killed while playing at war, and a city's safety rests on the image of a dead girl. Curious, huh? So what is Pallas in a chart? Pallas is asteroid number 2, found in 1802. She is a body about 500 kilometers across, and in a chart, she is the faculty that reads everything. She sees everything. Pattern recognition, intelligence, strategy, seeing the shape of a thing before it really has finished happening. Intuition, being able to see something coming, knowing which fight is worth having and knowing which one is a trap. Knowing which one to walk away from, knowing which one to have. Strategy. Strategy is not aggression. It is the intelligence of someone who cannot win by force and therefore has to be right about timing and angle and who actually decides. Now, this is not a Hellenistic body. Valens and Ptolemy never used the asteroids, one, because they couldn't see them, right? And what is Hellenistic is the goddess herself, and then what she comes out of. She's an Aries. In Aries, that is the sign of the move, right? First, going straight at it, initiating, and saying, I want, in the first person with nothing in front of it. Pallas is there. What fight got picked, how it got opened, whether the head-on approach was the right instrument or whether it was reached for because craft felt too slow and too quiet. Now, if you look for, so there's two things that we're talking about. One is Pallas transiting. Pallas transiting is in Aries right now. Then, so where she is through the 12 houses. In the first house, she is a woman whose strategy is visible in how she arrives. She reads the room on the way in, and she adjusts before she sits down. Her weakness is that the adjustment becomes automatic, and she stops knowing which version of herself just walked through the door. In the second house, she's very shrewd about what is hers and what she can convert. So livelihood, goods, giving, receiving, right? The weakness is holding on to an arrangement past the point where it serves her because she can see exactly how much it would cost. In the third, she is the strategist of the daily traffic and the siblings and the neighbors and short journeys and the household. So nothing that happens between people in an ordinary week gets past her. She sees it all. The weakness of this is managing a family system so skillfully that no one in it ever has to change or start to lift a finger because it's done so well. In the fourth house, she is the intelligence in the foundations, the land, the line that she came from, what is underneath the house, what secrets are under there. She knows exactly how the family works, not how it describes itself, not what's printed on the Christmas cards, but how it really works. The weakness here is the knowledge of how it works often arrives at a very young age, right? And stays as permanent hypervigilance. In the fifth house, she is craft, play, joy, sex, what she makes because making it brings joy, design, patterning, the pleasure of solving something just for solving something. And the weakness here could be turning play into a project with an outcome attached. In the sixth house, she is the practical genius of the ordinary week, the body's maintenance, the people under her, whatever has obliged to keep running, the things that we have to do every week, the recycling we have to bring out, the gym that we have to go to, the things that we have to do. She is the one who sees the fault in the whole process, and she can see what needs to be put in order to make it run more smoothly. The weakness here is being the only person who can see it, and being kept in the place where seeing it is all she's allowed to do. In the seventh house, she is her sharpest in marriages, partnerships, opposites, known adversaries. Negotiation is her element here. The weakness is that she can predict the other person so accurately that she starts running both sides of the conversation and forgets to want anything. In the eighth house, she reads what is jointly and never written down. Debts, inheritances, other people's resources, fear. She knows where the leverage is. The weakness here is a strategy that depends on things that no one will say out loud. In the ninth house, she's about doctrine, what's true, higher learning, the journey. She builds a framework and it holds. And the weakness is defending the framework after she just stopped believing in it because it is well built and she did it. She can count on it. In the 10th house, she is about strategy in the visible position, in her life's work, in rank, in action in the world. She knows how a career is made rather than how the handbook says it is. The weakness here is spending the intelligence on the climb and having nothing left for the question of what the climb was for when you would get there. In the 11th house, she is the alliance, the chosen people, patrons, hopes, the people that love her. She is extraordinary at knowing who will turn up and who needs what. And the weakness is auditing friendships for usefulness without intending to. And in the 12th, she is the strategist that no one sees, the interior work with no audience, the unseen adversary, the things that run out of sight. She is she is the most often the accurate reader in the room, and no one can see her. And the weakness can be a plan that's carried alone for years that never meets another mind. So let's look at the dates and the degrees, because this is really interesting. And so take out a piece of paper or take out your notes, because we'll have dates to remember and dates to go back and look at. Pallas entered Aries on the 26th of April, 2026, and she's in Aries until the 8th of March, 2027, almost 11 months. Her usual pass through a sign is a few months, so the retrograde is what keeps her here. On the 14th of August, 2026, 9:41 Universal Time, she stations retrograde at 22 degrees, 39 minutes of Aries. She stations direct on the 1st of December, 3 degrees, 18 minutes of Aries. So the arc between those 2 points is 19 degrees and 22 minutes. And, interesting, it's the same ground she covered between the 6th of May and the 14th of August. So make note of the 6th and the 7th of May. She's back at that 22 degrees, 39 minutes of Aries on the 19th of February, 2027. So she's finally out of shadow, 19th of February. And of course, she's not really turning around. The planets only appear to slide back because we are moving as well. And from that vantage point, the slower body seems to change direction. Well, it's not. And I take a lot of trains here in the Netherlands. And so when there's 2 trains sitting next to one another and one of them moves, it looks like the second one is going backwards, but it's not. She meets Neptune at 3 degrees, 27 minutes of Aries on the 7th of May, 2026. So that's a few degrees from where she stations direct in December. So go back and look at the 7th of May, and there's more dates coming. So she also meets Saturn 3 times. The first one is the 10th of June, 2026 at 12 degrees and 59 minutes. The second one is 18th of October, 2026, 10 degrees, 11 minutes. And then on the 9th of January, 8 degrees, 44 minutes. And then she meets Chiron, 27 degrees, 40 minutes of Aries on the 3rd of March, right before she leaves Aries. So what the review is: pattern recognition. A pattern can be complete the moment that it is seen. So when I notice a pattern that I'm doing, or I notice a pattern that someone else is doing that I have done, that's when I can call it complete, because I see it. And once the seeing of the pattern, usually then something completes, usually. And we can see how we acted. Oh, wow, I was in survival that day and I chose violence. Or, oh, I reached for force there. Or we see someone else doing a pattern that we have done and we notice that. So this is the retrograde, one after another, in ourselves and in the people around us, that very little can be done. Right? So the seeing is the work. And then when Pallas goes direct in December, everything that has been seen then becomes usable. And then we can move from there, from a different position, having seen what we have seen. Valence would say that a retrograde planet is only weakened. And the review in the second pass, the material coming up, that's all modern psychological astrology. And we need to make sure and be clear about that. But it also is really helpful, and I want to use it here. So let's look. Not your memory, because memory has a tendency to change over time, but look at the things that we have record of. So open your phone, Go back to the first week of May. What's in the photographs? Who was the text to on the 7th of May? What did it say? Also, about June, I look at my calendar for the week. I look at appointments. I look at my drafts. What's happening? What did happen? And so, because it's going to give us an idea of the conversation for us that is continuing. What was deleted? What are the drafts? Social media, what are the drafts, right? My TikTok drafts there's hundreds of those. So what is that? Then there are two things to find. So one is a moment in early May where something started and could not yet be put into words. So there's something that we didn't yet have words for. And it's usually like one line in a message thread that is just a clue. You'd be like, oh, okay, that's notable. It doesn't seem like anything at the time. And the other is the 10th of June. Something said no, and it was something outside of us. And this is the one that's easier to find. So whatever is on those two dates, that's what this passage is working on for us. Now, the 3 meetings with Saturn. Saturn in Aries is the rule about how much a person is allowed to want out loud. How far ahead of permission that she is allowed to move. Now, on the 10th of June, both bodies were moving forward, and a limit arrives. While things are moving forward, it comes from the outside. It has someone's name on it. So the loan officer says no. The board gives the post to someone who has less experience. There's a mother on the phone saying that we don't do this in our family, right? There's some limit. There's a physician with a 9-month wait. It's not about competence. It's about moving and happening, and then there's some kind of stop. What followed was the summer of skill acquisition, critical thinking, strategy, doing it better. So we write the proposal again. We apply for a different position. We find out who actually decides and get past the gatekeeper. Raising the point in the meeting before the one where the decision gets made, right? It's invisible labor, and it's Athena's skill because it's strategy. Then, on the 14th of August, it stops producing. Something did work. It has always worked, and now it does not. And the first conclusion that we get to is something is broken. It's not. Then the 9th of October. Oops, knocked my microphone over. The degree where Saturn said no comes around a second time. And the same events look different with 4 months of critical thinking and pattern recognition and strategy attached to them. So something's very different here. And it's actually a cause for celebration because of how different it is. Then, the 18th of October is the second meeting. Both Saturn and Pallas are retrograde. So this is the hardest month and this is where the Bondi story really comes in about betrayal. Because it will look like there's something about betrayal. It will look like there's something about Pam Bondi choosing against women. Something about Caroline choosing against herself and her own interests. Something like that, right? Or if it's not something outside of us, then it's something that we say to ourselves at 3 a.m. about our own work. And then finally, the 9th of January 2027, the third meeting, Pallas and Saturn, both are moving forward again. So the degrees have run 13 and then 10 and then 8, each meeting earlier in the sign and then closer to the start. June's limit was about one thing in particular. January's is about permission. Neptune. Now, so Pallas came up into Aries within 10 days and met Neptune at 3 degrees, 27 minutes. On the 7th of May, and the whole thing begins in a fog. So there's a resignation that's written but saved in the drafts. There's what a one-bedroom costs in the city but is never lived in, right? I'm fine, said twice in 1 week, but not really heard. Asking her in May what she's doing, but then she changes the subject because there's nothing to talk about. In Aries, it's the impulse that arrives before the plan does. That's what I love about Aries, but it also makes it difficult too. Then, on the 1st of December, she stations direct at 3 degrees 18 minutes of Neptune, which is very close to where it started. So, Pallas came into Aries, met Neptune 3 degrees 27 minutes, then Pallas goes direct at Neptune 3 degrees 18 minutes. So it's like the swim kick turn, right? Here she comes, so she jumps into the water with Neptune. She's going through Aries. Things aren't clear. She's choosing things that aren't really in her best interest. She's not choosing the correct things. She is gathering skills. She is picking up what she needs to pick up. And then here she comes retrograde. Through the retrograde, she's clearing. She sees things. Now remember, she doesn't have eyes, so she can't really see things, but she's seeing the patterns. She's noticing things. Oh, that wasn't a very good thing. Oh, I didn't do well there. Oh, I see someone else did something that I usually do, and now I can see the pattern. And then she does the kick turn off the side of the pool and then pushes off where the whole thing started. So Neptune describes there's this dissolving of the version that she has been giving of her own motives. She is starting to tell the truth. And she's starting to see the things. She thought she wanted the promotion, but maybe she really didn't. She wanted something to happen, but maybe she really didn't. She wanted to live in this place, but maybe she really didn't. Like, the things are becoming clear. Why did that happen? Instead of defending her behavior, she's noticing finally what's underneath all of it. That's what's so great about Neptune, being able to really wash away the BS and get down to what the truth is. So if anything surfaces in that first week of December, the flattering version is the likeliest form. It's the one where she comes out having decided that she was always Arachne and never Athena. Always the woman with the true cloth and never the one who tore it up. Then the sequence, right? Pallas stations direct on the 1st of December. Saturn stations direct on the 10th of December. Neptune stations direct on the 12th of December. So she's going first. And then Saturn and then Neptune. Then on the 19th of February, she's back at that 22 degrees. Where she turned on the 14th of August. 6 months after she stopped there. And from February 20th, the ground is the ground that she has only been through since the last time she was in Aries. On the 3rd of March, she meets Chiron, 27 degrees, and then she leaves Aries. The wound is the last thing that she meets. That is the loom changing hands. Finally, everything is complete. Finally, the patterns are done. And what she carries out is her mother's name after having said that she bore no mother, or a man wrote that she bore no mother. Now, the elements. Let's talk about the elements. Aries is cardinal fire, which decides who feels this on the angles and who does not. So the cardinal risings. I'm sorry if you can hear the fan in the background and you can hear me drinking water. It's hot. For the cardinal risings, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, all of this falls on an angle, which is the first house, the 10th, the 7th, and the 4th. Cardinal risings are getting this in the open, and they are attached to life itself, your work, your partner, your foundations. The fixed risings, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Aries falls in a cadent place, which is the 12th, the 9th, the 6th, and the 3rd. It's a little bit more quiet here. It's interior. It's not seen. So much of it will not have like visible occasions. It'll be more internal conversations. But keep telling the truth. Keep speaking. Keep finding the words for it. Mutable risings: Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Aries falls in a succedent place, which is the 11th and the 8th and the 5th and the 2nd. Succedent places tend to accumulate, so whatever the review builds on something instead of announcing itself, like for the cardinal risings is going to. And then the fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, the whole figure is your own element, and this is going to arrive in your languaging. You are going to feel this. As above, so below. So just a reminder, Pallas station retrograde in Aries 11 times since 1900. In 1915, the station came on the 22nd of July. That April 1915, 1,136 women crossed a continent at war and met at The Hague. Alita Jacobs organized it, and Jane Addams presided, and women arrived from countries whose armies were killing each other, including delegates from Germany and from Britain, none of whom had a vote in her own country. They did not pass a protest. They drafted 20 resolutions, including continuous mediation by neutral states, and they picked delegations and sent them to the capitals. 2 teams of women went to 14 governments and were received by the prime ministers and foreign ministers with no standing whatsoever, and the mediation proposal went into circulation and eventually into Wilson's 14 points. Women with no vote designed a diplomatic instrument and delivered it. I don't believe that the sky caused these, but I think the shape is the same. Now, the Pambandi reading of Athena, which is betrayer, selling out her best interests, I think that it's accurate if we read the record as it is told. However, how is it told? Right? Who wrote it? What are the patterns that we're seeing about what is told and how it's written and who was writing it at what time and what the conversations are? Because if we retell it, and if we change the story to Athena arming Medusa, it fits just as much, if not more. So underneath the story is a woman whose entire intelligence, not a woman, a goddess, entire intelligence came from a mother that no one in the story can see. She's underneath. She's in the 12th house. She's hidden. But she was still raised inside of this world that ate the mother, and who armed a raped woman in the only workshop that she had access to, and she wore that woman's face on her chest for the rest of her time. Both of those are one goddess. And the retrograde is 4 months of looking at the 2 of them at once without dropping. What is the motivation here? Who's telling the story? Why are they telling the story? What do they get out of the story? Is there a different way to look at the story? How did I choose in this situation? Did I choose well? Did I not choose well? Is there a different way that I could choose? This is the strategy that Pallas is offering us over the next 4 months. And I think it's a really rich, sweet time. All signs. In the first week of May, something started that could not yet be put into words. It's usually one line in a message that looks like nothing, or it's in our drafts and we haven't sent it, or someone asked us something and we changed the subject because there's nothing there to talk about yet. Then on the 10th of June, something said no, someone said no. There was a limit. And this one is easier to find. And everything is still moving forward, and then there's a no that comes, and it was very clear. And then we spend the whole summer acquiring a skill, something about our thought, something about what we see, how we see it, how we're thinking about things that have happened. Then, on the 14th of August, that stops working. So what was actually up is pattern recognition, and a pattern is really finished the moment that it's seen. So there's nothing to be worked out yet. We can't do anything with the information. We're just seeing it. It arrives whole and finished, one after another. Be like, oh, I see that pattern. I see that pattern. I see how they behave in that situation. That's similar to how I behave in that situation. Oh, I've never seen that before. And then we just see that and see that and see that for months. Aries, Capricorn, Libra, Cancer. You are taking this on an angle so it's visible. It's attached to life itself. You will see this, other people will see this. Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, we're going to take it a little bit more quietly, so there's no visible occasion for most of it. It's internal. And then Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces are somewhere where it accumulates rather than announcing itself. You may see it, other people may see it, but it's growing instead of something big announcing itself. Then, by the 1st of December, everything that we haven't been able to do anything about, but we've been seeing, oh, I did that, they did that, oh, I hadn't seen that before. It all comes all together, and from there, we can move on in a different way than we ever have before. Cancer rising. Nobody has ever had to explain to you how a life gets made rather than how the handbook says. The 10th is your action in the world, your rank, what your life is publicly for, and what it is really producing. Since the spring, you have been going at something there directly, seriously, in the first person. On the 10th of June, it met a limit. And then everyone close to you heard about the version that you can say at a table instead of the version that you say to yourself at 2 in the morning. What you do afterwards is get very good. You work out who is really the decision maker, who really is stopping you, what was really in the way, and then you figure out a way around it. By the first week of December, you can see everything. There is something that you have kept alive for many years, and you've poured your life into a business, a house with people in it, a piece of ground that was bare. It runs, and the people inside it stopped noticing that it was ever built, which is what happens when something is built very well. The olive was the right instrument. It feeds a town for 200 years. And the woman who put it in the ground is rarely still standing there when anyone asks where the oil came from. You would love to be standing there. And the people around you who call you first, not one of them has ever waited for the climb to finish before being glad of you. Leo rising. What you hold true is always well built, and it holds under pressure. And you've been defending something now out of loyalty instead of really that the argument holds. The 9th house is doctrine, higher learning, the journey, what you've concluded about how things really work. And since May, the review has been running underneath it on a question that you didn't really ask for. And that is, where did it all come from? Audre Lorde stood up at a New York university in 1979 in a room of feminist scholars where she and one other woman were the only black women on the program and said that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. She was talking to the women in that room about what happens when women take the framework built to keep them out and then use the framework, and about who is left standing outside while the expertise is demonstrated. What is going to land is that one of the best parts of your framework came from a woman whose share and contribution was never put in. Your ruler is the sun in your own sign until the 23rd of August. Until then, this is running in daylight for you instead of underground. Two things are true at once. You are strong enough to hold both without dropping either. One, what you build is yours. And so is the line that it traveled down, so is the karma, so is the lineage, so is the history. and the women in that line are working in whether or not anybody wrote them in. You probably have never said this to anyone, but what you want is to still matter after you have gone. So that is what a framework is for, and yours is already holding people up who haven't met you. Virgo rising. Aries is your 8th house. In every arrangement that you are a part of, you can see exactly where all the leverage is, but you've never used it. The 8th house is what is held between people but never really reaches paper. It's what is owed in all directions, what got settled about something after someone died. It's about fear. It's about what people do with money when they're frightened. A piece of it has been in your hands since May, and it was taken on from the front. And the difficulty of the 8th house is that a strategy built on what no one will say out loud cannot be tested and it cannot be corrected. The Furies had hunted Orestes because of the blood of a mother is the one debt that they collect on. When the vote went against them, they screamed. Athena offered them a room under the city, honors, incense, and a new title, and they took it. This play is the Kindly Ones, which is their name and what they agreed to be called once the arrangement is in place. That's what's been happening in your 8th house, but it didn't happen to you. You watched it happen, and you've been the only one in the family who could really describe it accurately. From Friday, the pattern arrives whole instead of in pieces, and the room under the city turns out to have been the same room all along. Your ruler is Mercury, which crosses into its own sign on the 25th of August. So from the end of the month, your judgment about all of this at its full strength is working rather than at half strength. Nothing about that arrangement was ever your doing, and none of it is yours to keep in good standing. By December, it's out where you can really look at it straight, and you can really see what works about it, what doesn't work. What you want is to be trusted with the thing that really matters. But the thing is that you already are. The 8th house is best with a woman that's trusted at the whole of it and is not the only one carrying it. So the second half to you is available to not be the only one carrying it. Libra. Aries is your 7th house, so across a table, you are the sharpest person in the building, and you can predict the other side so accurately that you have started running both halves of the conversation. The 7th house is the one opposite you, so the business partner, the marriage, the person that you've known the longest, the one that you fell out with but still think about, the known adversary who is not really an enemy. Negotiation is your element, and it has always been. Since the spring, you've been coming at one of those relationships from the front, which is not your usual method. In the Athenian theater in 458 BC, a jury of citizens is deadlocked over a man who killed his mother. The votes are counted, and they are even, and then Athena holds the last one. She casts it, and she gives her reason out loud in front of the whole city. She doesn't simply agree with the men, she provides the reasoning that lets them stop arguing. This is the risk in this house. You are so good at the case for the other side that yours never really gets put on the table. And by the end, you're not even really sure what you wanted. Whatever was refused on the 10th of June, the recognition landing this autumn says something like, "Oh, I never told her what I actually wanted. I told her what she could take." Your ruler is Venus, at home in your own sign since the 6th of August, which puts your own taste and your own preference in your hands rather than anybody else's gift. Your own terms have never gone on the table, and it is time. The one thing that you've never been willing to do is stay inside of an arrangement that only works for one side, and you've left before rather than to do it. She's been waiting for the real position longer than you think, And a counterpart who argues back is the only kind of counterpart worth having across from you. It is worth it. Scorpio. Aries is our 6th house. I say our because I'm Scorpio rising. We are the ones who can see the fault in the process, usually months before it shows. The 6th house is the ordinary week, what we are obliged to keep running, the hours as we actually live them, the part of it that isn't going to hold. We have been going at it clear and direct and straight since the spring. And the hard thing about this house is it's never been about what we see. It's been being the only one who sees it, and then being kept in the place where seeing it is all that we're asked for. Athena is Ergani of the workshop. What she hands to women is the loom, and the spindle, and the wheel, and the kiln, for which most of recorded history was the only economy that a woman could run in her own right. Not a favor, but an instrument handed over, which then becomes an income and property. Between June and now, we got better. We got better at the week. We got better at calendaring. We got better at ourselves. We let 3 things fall over that most people say are essential. Nothing happened, and only 2 of them have not been missed. I know what my one is. From Friday morning, the tactic stops producing. It worked. It has always worked. And now it does not. And the first thing available to think is that we've lost our touch or that something is wrong. But what actually happens is that the week has finished telling us what it is. Now we have to go figure it out. Mars rules us and is in Cancer until the end of September, the sign where will moves through the house and people in it instead of out at a target. So that describes force going into the week itself. It's not misfiring, it's being spent where we live. We stop diagnosing, finally, in December. What we want is the hours that are ours and the work that we choose rather than the work that we fall into. And with our own people inside the week instead of around the edges and when we have time. Sagittarius. Nothing you make has to be for anything, and you've been attaching outcomes to it for a long time. The 5th house is play, craft, sex, design, pattern, the pleasure of solving a thing because solving is fun. And around the 7th of May, something started in that house, and there was no way to say what it was. In Aries, the impulse turns up long before the plan does, so anyone who asked you in May got the subject changed. Arachne was a girl from Lydia who was better at weaving than the goddess. Ovid says the work was flawless. Not one thread in it could be faulted. What she wove was true, and it was destroyed because it was true by the goddess of exactly the skill that made it. You have made something that good. You have stood in front of it and asked what it was and what it was for in the voice of someone who was not going to accept the answer. The recognition this autumn is, oh, that was mine, and I've been talking about it as though I found it lying around. Your ruler is Jupiter in Leo, which is a year of being visible whether or not that was the plan. Things you made privately are being seen by people that you did not show them to, but other people did. The 1st of December is where you finally start moving. The thing is finished, it is good, and no opinion of it changes what it is. Your appetite for the world has not diminished with a single year of your life, which almost no one can say. And the 5th house is where that shows without needing a destination attached. The young one in your family has already copied it without being asked, which is the only review that has ever counted. Capricorn. How your family works, rather than how it describes itself, was clear to you probably earlier than 9. The 4th house is the ground under the life. The house, the hand, the ancestry, the line that you came from, what's buried underneath it. You went at something there in the spring with none of the usual approach work. And then on the 10th of June, there was some answer that came back from a voice that you have known your whole life. Before Hera, Zeus married Metis. Metis is the older word for the practical kind of cunning, the shape-shifting kind, the intelligence that gets a person out of a room. When she was pregnant with Athena, Zeus was warned that Metis' child would take his throne. So Zeus ate Metis. Athena arrives anyway, fully formed out of his head. Athena is not motherless. Her mother is inside the body of the man who consumed her, still working, still supplying every piece of strategy, but no longer able to speak in her own voice. Everything Athena knows is Metis, how she reads a room, how to do timing, the moment to speak. All of it came from a woman that no one in the story can see. Nobody in that house handed your competence over. Metis left it in you. And by December, you can see the whole line running forward as well as back. What you want is to arrive somewhere and then stay there, inside of what you built and what you appreciated building, instead of underneath everything, holding it all up. The fourth house at its best is exactly that. The house will hold, and you can be inside of it instead of underneath it. You have been nearer to that since the spring than anyone around you has noticed. In December, it starts for real. Aquarius. There is very little that happens between people around you in an ordinary week that gets past you. You see everything. The third house is the daily traffic, the neighbor, the 5-minute walk, Pilates, the coffee shop, the exchange that you have 4 times a day that never really think about, and the small sacred things that happen in a household. You run it all so well that nobody in the system has ever had to shift, and for the first time in years, you've been taking that on from the front rather than looking at it from the side. Philomela could not say what had been done to her. So she sat down at the loom and wove everything that happened onto the cloth and sent the cloth to her sister, and her sister knew how to read it. She read it. She had no voice, but she could weave, and weaving said it for her. The loom Athena destroyed in Arachne's hands is the same technology that got Philomela heard. Something like that has already gone out from you, and someone saw it. A message that was not really about what it said. A thing put in front of someone sideways, because sideways was the channel available, but she got it. The recognition arriving later this year is, oh, I have been smoothing a conversation that 2 people needed to have. And you'll see that, and you'll allow it to happen. Saturn rules you, and it is retrograde in the 3rd house, meeting Pallas in October and again in January. The rule under review is the one about how much of yourself is allowed out in everyday exchange. You see the shape of a thing before anyone else does, and you've been right about it more often than it has ever been said out loud, which is why the interval between being right and being believed is so tiring in a house made of daily conversation. What you need is room to go your own way without a debate about it every time. In December, the whole of it comes available all at once. The people who never really wanted the managed version of a conversation with you, they want the one with your whole enormous awkward AF heart in it, which is the one that you really are. Pisces. Aries is your 2nd house, so anything that is yours, you can see all of it, including what it could be converted into, and you've been staying inside something because you can see what unpacking would cost, and it's too much. Medusa was assaulted in Athena's temple by Poseidon, a god that Athena had no power over. So what Athena could do was to fit Medusa with the only thing that she had access to, and that The men writing it down filed it as a curse, because a woman that nothing can reach is exactly what they think that it is, a curse. On the 10th of June, someone said no to money, and it didn't land on the figures. Your figures were fine. It landed on something about you having asked at all before anyone in your life had really agreed that this was something that you were doing. Your ruler is Jupiter in Leo, which puts what you hold to be true out where it can be seen this year instead of keeping it at home. All of this finishes in December, and the whole process becomes visible. So what is yours outright, and what you want out of that house is enough, secured, with no possibility of it being taken back, and nothing in it running on someone else's continued goodwill. The one thing that you have never done through all of this is harden yourself to stay safe. Medusa didn't either, and she was armed instead. Aries, your strategy is visible in how you arrive. You read the room on the way in, and you have adjusted yourself before you even sit down. The first house is your body, your presence, the fact of you coming through the door. The station on Friday falls at 22 degrees of your own rising sign, so this is on you directly instead of off to the side. The risk in your house is that the adjustment on the way in has become so automatic that you have stopped knowing which version of you is sitting down. Perseus was sent for Medusa's head, and Athena handed him the mirrored shield. Then the head came back, and Athena put it on her own chest. The Gorgon is on every image of her that survives. She wears the face of a raped woman into every battle for 3,000 years. She never takes it off, and anyone who comes at her has to look at the face. You wear something like that. Everyone who has ever come at you has had to get past it, and most of them don't. The recognition landing this autumn is quiet, and it goes something like, oh, I walked in like that because of a room that I was in 10 years ago. That room is no longer there. I don't need to walk in like that anymore. It will arrive slow and soft. Mars rules you and is in Cancer, the sign that it is least at ease in until the end of September. So force normally goes straight out at a target, and then it's going into the house and the people in it instead, which is why this month has been effort for you with no real distance made. In December, you arrive as yourself. The face on the chest says right where it is. It was never the adjustment that was protecting you, and the people who love you have been waiting a very long time to meet whomever comes through the door without it. The thing that you've never really said is that you would love to rest without turning into someone else while you do it. You can put the reading of the room down and still be that same woman in the chair. Taurus rising. Aries is in your 12th house. Most rooms you sit in, you are the most accurate reader in them and the one with no standing to say it. And you've been carrying a plan a long time that has never met another mind. The 12th house is what runs out of sight, the interior work with no audience, the hour before the house is awake, the unseen adversary, and the thing that you've never really handed over. Aries falls in a cadent house for you, which means that most of this has no visible occasion at all. Nothing lands in public. It lands at 11 p.m. In April 1915, 1,136 women crossed a continent at war and met at The Hague. Alita Jacobs organized it and Jane Addams presided, and women arrived from countries whose armies were shelling each other, and none of them had a vote at home. They did not pass a protest. They drafted 20 resolutions, including continuous mediation by neutral states, then picked delegates and sent them out. 2 teams of women went to 14 governments and were received by prime ministers and foreign ministers with no standing whatsoever. and the proposal went into circulation and eventually into Wilson's 14 points. Women with no standing designed the instrument and delivered it by hand. Standing was never the qualification, it was the thing that they didn't wait for. Your ruler is Venus, at home in Libra since the 6th of August, which is a season where things that you like really reach you rather than getting deferred one more year. Between now and December, the plan meets another mind. So one page, one person, the ceiling stays up. The friend who has never really repeated anything is the one who would read it. What you want out of that house was never an audience. It's something that's really yours instead of shared or lent or held on someone else's terms. So it's all your terms. And ours with nobody watching that count as work when they're finished. Gemini. The 11th is the people that you chose rather than the people that you were handed. The alliance, the ones that you would cross a country for, the hopes that you've said. Something in that house has had your direct attention since the spring. The difficulty in the 11th is that the same accuracy that picks people so well starts quietly auditing them for usefulness when you're tired. In one telling, Pallas was a girl, Athena's companion, and the two of them used to spar. And one day, Athena struck too hard and killed her. She took the dead girl's own name for herself and carved her image, and that image was kept in the citadel. The strategist of the ancient world is called after the friend that she killed while playing at war, and a city's safety rested on the kept image of a girl. You keep people that way. There is somebody that you have not seen in years, whose voice that you would know in 1 second, and your life has her all over it. The whole company is visible at once by the start of December. Some of it took nerve and none of it was luck, and it is the most durable thing that you have ever done. You move between worlds that do not overlap, and you are fluent in each of them. And the people at that table came out of each of the worlds, which is why you and your life is so interesting.